Sources are telling the information that the Department of Justice is investigating Apple's use of its Sign In with Apple button to make it more difficult for users to switch to a rival device maker. So this would suggest a new front being opened up beyond just the, Apple, you're not being fair with the App Store rules. Quote, Apple says its Sign In with Apple button, which gives users the ability to hide their personal details from the app, is pro-privacy. But investigators are examining how Apple uses the sign-in button and other App Store rules to make it more difficult for users to switch to a rival device maker, according to people who have met regularly with the Justice Department over the past 18 months. The government's interest in the Apple sign-in button, which the company introduced in 2019, hasn't been previously reported. The investigation shows how Apple's recent efforts to enhance privacy, which have won it plaudits from some members of Congress, have collided with the government's antitrust investigation into whether Apple has abused its monopoly control over software on its devices. Developers began lodging complaints to U.S. investigators about the sign-in button starting last summer, these people said. Despite the multiple threads the government is pursuing, bringing an antitrust case against Apple won't be straightforward and may require a more aggressive interpretation of antitrust laws than some of the agency's prior cases. For one thing, while iPhones are widely used, their share of the U.S. smartphone market just barely reaches monopoly territory under antitrust law. U.S. antitrust enforcers typically consider a monopoly to be control of 60% or more of a market, but Apple's share of the U.S. mobile device software market ranges between 50 and 62%, depending on the research firm calculating the data, while Google's Android controls most of the rest of the market. In contrast, the Justice Department's recently filed antitrust case against Google's search engine centered on its control of a whopping 90% of the search market in the U.S., and the agency's antitrust case against Microsoft in the 1990s occurred at a time when that company's Windows market share in PC software topped 90%, end quote. On Twitter, Kyle Seth Gray said, quote, It literally works like any other SSO service. If you're not on an Apple device, it takes you to appleid.apple.com to complete the authentication. What's the issue here? End quote. But your podcast ombudsman, Chris Messina, said, quote, that Apple is neutering the IDFA only points to an increasing drive toward the importance of Sign In with Apple and owning the digital credentials of the user. If you want to target users in the future, you'll have to go through Apple. Sign In with Apple is the sign of the beast. A monopolist hiding in plain clothes, end quote.